Hi, this is Trevor, and it is Sunday, March the 10th, 2013, and I'm coming to you from my home because today is my day off from my work. And I just thought I would do a little vlog, kind of an update on what's new. I'm continuing to enjoy the newer location of being in the west end of Winnipeg, and right now I'm reading still predominantly at Elemental Book and Curiosity Shop. I am an independent business, but that's a venue that I am working through. And it's a pretty good fit. I'm enjoying being there. To book a reading, you can always call my own independent booking line that allows me to arrange things. And that's at area code 204-504-9575. Or through the joy of modern technology, you can also call the venue that I'm reading through. And again, that's Elemental Book and Curiosity Shop. And the phone number there is area code 204-779-8900. It's worked out to be a very good cooperative arrangement. A lot of the time, people will leave a message, and if I'm busy doing a reading, Dominique, the owner of the shop, very kindly will oftentimes be returning those calls. So you can call either number, and we can make arrangements. Even on my day off, I'm still able to kind of go ahead and handle booking for other days when I am working. But enough about business. I thought I would share a little bit today for those of you out there who are interested in the dynamics of tarot and how that works. A little something further along those lines. The court cards in tarot, they are the pages, knights, queens, and kings, are oftentimes used to describe people in the querent's life. Querent is another word, I guess you could say, for the customer or the person who is being read. I look at the court cards in many different ways. They can describe people, but I have also mentioned before, both in my writing and I think in some of these other vlogs, that the court cards can be kind of like modalities or gears that we're shifting into. So today I thought we would look at the pages. Pages in tarot oftentimes represent children, and the figures on those cards themselves are often depicted as being quite childlike. So pages can describe the little people in our lives. Right? They also can describe messages, news that's coming through, just like how in a castle, a page is the person who runs around delivering things. Even in our Canadian Parliament, the pages are pretty important. And they can sometimes carry quite a message. The different pages in the deck relate to the 4 different elements. And the elements in tarot, once again, are earth, water, fire, and air. Earth being represented by pentacles, which is the same in playing cards as diamonds. Air being represented by swords, which is the same as spades. Cups, which are the same as hearts, and that relates to water, of course. And wands relate to fire, and they're the same as the suit of clubs. So you can see right there that there's 3 different levels of association. 2 different systems and elements. Also, the different areas of astrology relate to those elements, with fire being represented by Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, and so on. Right? So when you start looking at all these things, you can start getting a little overwhelmed, especially if you're trying to really pin down what does this mean. But that's the difference, I think, between memorizing tarot cards and associations and allowing yourself to free associate and make those connections. So I'm looking at how these symbols can suggest things to us. Right? And getting back to the pages in particular, if we were going to be talking about little people, and I've got some great frames of reference there because I'm an uncle and I'm now kind of like a granduncle. And I also have friends who have kids, and those kids are my friends. Also, in some of my other work that I've done from time to time, I've encountered different kinds of learners, both in working around children's theater as well as in an adult learning environment. You notice that different people have different learning styles. And I like to think that you can make some association in terms of those different kinds of consciousness and how they like to work and operate. And I think you can relate that pretty well to the elements in the tarot and to the court cards. One of the things I can remember hearing about was a kinesthetic learner. A kinesthetic learner is the kind of kid that needs to get up and move around in the classroom, sometimes needs to have a lot of space, needs to burn off a little bit of energy. So I would associate that to the Page of Wands. When we think of fire, fire is a very active force. It certainly is energetic. We talk about a person being fiery or feisty. That would certainly describe that kind of energy. So this can be the kind of kid who's athletic, maybe needs to go out at recess and run around the school 2 or 3 times before they can kind of settle down in terms of some learning, but also very drawn to group challenge, sense of teamwork, and sometimes the disciplines that can tie into that, like team building, can be very helpful for a kind of kinesthetic learner like the Page of Wands. Then we have a watery element in the Page of Cups. And water we think of as being kind of receptive and fluid. It can be bubbly. It can be kind of sulky. There's a lot of emotional energy that we associate with the suit of water or the suit of cups. So the Page of Cups is kind of playful and sensitive, sometimes moody, very responsive, and oftentimes very sensitive to what's going on in the environment and what's happening with other people around them. A strong kind of empathic and compassionate energy can be present with the Page of Cups. The Page of Swords relates to air, and I think the Page of Swords is the kind of kid that likes to go out for the debating team. Sometimes making statements rather than asking questions, and sometimes testing boundaries. When we think of what a sword is there to do, it's there to protect, to keep things safe, sometimes to go on the attack. So I think this is a kid who sometimes needs to be encouraged to ask questions, sometimes to be aware of how there can be a right way to sometimes raise an issue without it having to be confrontation. Sometimes the Page of Swords can be a very helpful little hall monitor, kind of reporting on things. And oftentimes writing and articulation can be very strong. But these elements flow through each other. This is why I also have a little bit of a hard time with some of the tarot, some of the areas of tarot study that suggest that the Page of Wands should be fair-haired, or a dark-haired child should be the Page of Pentacles, especially if we're going to be making those other associations, because that starts to be like a bad blonde joke, or suggesting that all dark-haired people are good with money. No. I think that this is, again, why we can look at these different associations, but why it's important that there's sort of intuitive awareness. Now, getting to the Page of Pentacles, which is a very resourceful kind of energy. Pentacles tie into the suit of diamonds, and they also tie into the element of earth. So we have this very kind of quirky, multifaceted kind of energy that comes through. And I think the Page of Pentacles particularly is an interesting child who can be kind of drawn to learning things in their own way. I often say a self-directed learner. I think of some of the young people I know who get an interest in a hobby. Actually, my older brother Ben had a microscope, and he had an aquarium, and he was really into minerals at one point. And when we were kids and we had to share a bedroom, this stuff was all over the place. And he liked to have his projects. So there's sort of a self-directed kind of quality that comes through in terms of those things. I often say the Page of Pentacles is the kind of kid that will put a toasted cheese sandwich in the VCR. And the other reference I often mention is like a young Jim Henson. What a creative mind that could look at an old green felt coat, 2 ping pong balls, and make a little frog named Kermit. And the rest was history. So those are just some of the examples of how we can make associations of the elements to the kind of personality and how those things come through. The other interesting thing I've found about pages is that they can sometimes represent people not necessarily younger than us, and certainly not less knowledgeable, but people towards whom we have a responsibility. I think of someone in my family who works in the field of education, and we used to say to her every year, "What kind of kids do you have?" And she would say, "Oh, this year I have good kids," or "This year I have restless kids." And what she was talking about was the sort of collective personality that you could represent, almost as if you were talking about a single person. So in a way, pages can sometimes represent that. When people have questions about business, for instance, pages can represent those people coming in the door who've not yet had a firm impression of you. And sometimes it can be helpful to understand what their needs are and how you have to kind of shift gears in terms of relating to them. So that's another way we can work with these symbols on different levels. So I think that the pages are also an opportunity for us to learn, to let that kind of new experience show us facets in ourselves we maybe didn't know were there. So that's just a little smattering of, again, associations of the elements, how those things can kind of work together on different levels. And it's been fun playing with pages. So I'll look forward to hearing from you. I value your comments, or if you're in Winnipeg, stop by to Elemental and say hello, or give us a call at the numbers I mentioned earlier. Take care, and hopefully it's going to be spring soon. The snow is melting, and it's a beautiful sunshiny day. I'm going to head outside now. Take care.